Moving on, we come to the third approach, Karma Yoga. Now, the basic idea here is pretty much the same, that we need to move away from being egocentric and attached to our own actions. But the idea is that some people are a little bit more, the term our text uses, active. The idea is that for some people, the idea of contemplating philosophy or engaging in deep meditation, it just may not be their thing. They're more lively people who are engaged in the world. And rather than try and force them to retreat from that, you can kind of use that as a positive step towards this ultimate goal of attaining moksha. And so the idea would be that we're going to engage in karma, action, and of course the consequences of those actions, including rebirth. But one is trying to gradually perfect this so that one's actions become more and more selfless, and gradually you become almost like a conduit through which the divine works, so that you are perfectly manifesting a kind of divine activity. The way that you would move through this system, which would presumably take many lifetimes, would be a system called Varnashrama Dharma. This is really just the same thing we talked about before, but it has an extra added component. And that is that the Dharma means the duties that are associated with caste, Varna, and stages of life, Ashrama. And so before we talked about how based on your previous lifetime's actions, you will come back in a certain caste. That's the Varna. But what's being added here is some idealized version of how you would move through a given lifetime to sort of make the most of that lifetime. And if, of course, you came back as a Brahmin, as a high caste person, you would be able to most fully perfect these 4 different stages of life. So the first part of this, the sense of the duties of the 4 castes, you can read a little bit about them here. It doesn't really give you any earth-shattering information, but the basic idea is that those who are born in a lower caste, they have duties to serve, and if they fulfill those duties well, then they, in their next life, will probably move up. Whereas those in the higher castes, they have more and more obligations to kind of take care of others, and it's expressed here as gift giving. The idea is that they perhaps have more access to wealth and therefore give more, and the Brahmins, their gift is in a sense their wisdom, which they are the teachers of at least the other 2 castes. The Shudras, the lowest caste, are not supposed to be eligible to hear the sacred teachings of the Vedas. So that's the moving through the caste part of this, but let's focus on the 4 stages of life. So the first stage is as a student, brahmachara, and people in the top 3 castes, the Vaishya, the Kshatriya, and the Brahmins, they're called the twice-born castes, and they go through a ritual where it's sort of like entering into manhood, and so there's some gender issues here, but that's just the way it is. And you can see this sacred string that he's receiving, that Hindus will wear a sacred string throughout their life. And so this is kind of initiation into becoming an adult male member of the community. So if you watch this video, you can get a sense of what that's like. It's not dissimilar from something like a bar mitzvah in the Jewish tradition, and as with contemporary bar mitzvahs, people like to make videos of them, and this is very similar. It's an Indian version of a bar mitzvah video, essentially. So you go through the student stage. In ancient times, that would have meant going into the forest to study with a guru and learn the sacred texts. Nowadays, not so much, but it still symbolically represents this stage where you are learning, especially religious learning. You will then move from that into the householder phase, where you will get married. There's a nice video here. Again, not dissimilar from the wedding videos that people make here in America. And when you become a householder, this is really a time when you reach your full adulthood. Ideally, you have some kind of a profession, you're making some money, and it is regarded as perfectly acceptable in this phase to enjoy the fruits of life. You're married, so you can enjoy sexual activity within, obviously, the confines of what's socially acceptable, marriage, and so that's one kind of way you can enjoy the world. But if you have wealth, or to whatever extent you have wealth, there's not seen as anything wrong in this path to enjoy that wealth, to eat delicious food and go see plays and listen to music and all of these things. The idea is that you enjoy that in this period of your life, and you raise a family and you pass everything on to the next generation. And then as you get older, you begin to turn more towards the religious pursuits. And so you become a forest dweller. This may occur when your wife is still alive. And so if that happens, she may accompany you into the forest. At least symbolically, in ancient times was obviously a little different than now. But the idea is that you retreat from social life to some extent, not fully, but to a certain extent, and you start turning more to the religious life. That might involve performing certain rituals, reading sacred texts like the Upanishads, and in general, just becoming more religiously oriented. And the final stage, which most people won't reach, but one may reach, and that would be to become a full renunciate, sannyasin. And in this stage, you give up all attachment to worldly affairs, including connections to your family, and you focus on the pursuit of moksha, the pursuit of this awakening exclusively. That becomes your primary focus. And so the idea is either within one lifetime, or perhaps, of course, it's going to take many, many lifetimes, but if in this life you happen to have the opportunity and you feel that you're ready to make this kind of a vow, then you can retreat from life fully, and then that would be the way that you would attain enlightenment.